Welcome. My name is Ragnar Tronquist. I'm the Senior Producer and Creative Director of The Secret World, and today we're going to be showing a bunch of cool new features in The Secret World and some new content as well. Starting with the Dragon new player experience, which is a world first here at GDC. But first we're going to go through character creation, so we can switch over to that now. And in character creation, the first choice you make is your secret society. And like I said, we're going to go with a dragon. We've already shown Illuminati and Templars previously, so the dragon is the sort of the brand new thing we're showing off here. So character creation here, we get to choose between male and female, of course, and we have a bunch of base heads to choose from. These are basically starting points for players to be able to create their own character. As you can see, we have not too much variety right now, but that's something we're changing. Before launch, we're going to add a lot more options here as well. You can select different eyes to go with your character, color the eyes, noses, basically make a whole bunch of modifications in order to create exactly the character you wanna play as. And again, we are going to have more options for these things as well. For now, we're just going to take a quick look at this and let's go with something that looks attractive before we jump over to the hairstyles. So we're gonna try to cycle through that as well, look at all the different hairs we can have, and we can also color those any color we want. I think we'll go with that one. Looks pretty good. Facial hair, we can make that match, or we can change it to something completely different. We'll skip the eyebrow section for now and look at some of the makeup too. We'll have tons of different makeups that players can choose between, including this. But for now, let's just go au naturel and go to the clothing section. Players will be able to choose between a fair amount of clothes in character creation, but most of the clothes are going to be reserved for rewards in-game and for buying with in-game currency in the store in London. For now, we'll just check out some of the possibilities we have here. It's a nice pink coat, but let's skip the coat and let's go with just the cowgirl top, as I like to call it, and maybe some nice jeans, although hot pants is always a good option. Check that out. I guess not. Yeah, let's stick with the jeans, and then finally shoes. I'm partial to the red sneakers myself. We can also vary the size of the character, scale her up a bit, but I think we'll stick to something right in the middle. And then finally, of course, we can create a name. Unlike most MMOs, this game is set in the modern day real world, so we'll be able to choose a first name and a last name, along with a nickname. And this character is going to be called Dolly, apparently. Thank you for that. All right, so I'm going to hand this over to Joel now. Joel is going to be talking, Joel Bylos is the lead content designer, and he's going to be talking about new player experience in Soul.
So yeah, we're going to be talking a little bit about the Dragon startup experience. I'll provide a little bit of background about the three factions and their hubs. So all of the factions have their own individual starting area, a hub. The Templars they start in London, the Illuminati start in New York, and the Dragons start here in Seoul, South Korea. Now, each of them have a very unique way of arriving at their hub as well. The London guys are recruited by a Templar recruiting agent, which is pretty straightforward. The Illuminati guys are recruited by like a talent agent, almost like a Hollywood talent scout, who comes and basically threatens them and tells them to find the location in New York as a part of their test. And the Soul guys are kidnapped. The Dragon guys are kidnapped from their home, basically thrown in the back of a van, dragged into this part of the city, thrown out of the back of the van, and when they stand up, they're here in this alleyway, and the wall has sort of appeared behind them and they can't leave. So they're stuck in this suburb of Seoul. And so, as with everything Dragon, the philosophy is chaos and digging through chaos. So we're going to move forward now and see who we can find that might be able to help us in the streets of Seoul. All right, so we have this girl with the raincoat who appears in the street, and we need to follow her. All right, so I'll talk a little bit about what hubs are in our game. Hubs are the social gathering places in the secret world. So players will be able to meet up with other players, they'll be able to go to auction houses, they'll be able to go to the bank, they'll be able to go to dance clubs, they'll be able to go to bars, fight clubs. All of these things are accessible through the hubs. And obviously each hub is based on the real world location, so London, Seoul and New York all sort of feel like the cities that they're based around, so they're supposed to really grab that feeling. So if you've ever been to Seoul, you might recognise the sort of the streets and the sort of boutique hotel ahead of us. This is all sort of part of the style that we're going for. Right, so with the dragon, the player really is sort of part of this mysterious, chaotic organisation, and they don't really get told direct orders at any point. So the player needs to just sort of try to figure out what's going on in the world for them. And as we approach this hotel, you'll see on the right there's a karaoke bar, and actually there's sort of story parts later on which are told through the karaoke singer singing songs, which is quite interesting. So there's kind of all these weird things that happen in the dragon area for the player to sort of dig into and find out. So we're now going to arrive in the hotel room, which the child has led us to, and we'll see what happens there as the player digs deeper into chaos.
You're shy. Shy, confused, lost. You're not lost anymore. The dragon found you. And now, you found me. Everything happens for a reason. Every event, no matter how small, has consequences. They will ask you to do things, and most of the time, you will not know why, or what the consequences may be. It is the curse of the dragon. We do not know why we do what we do, but we do it regardless, because they tell us it is right. From chaos, there is order and clarity. The one moment of absolute clarity comes in that brief exhalation of ecstasy. When our minds are empty, we are receptive to the truth. Most of the time, you will not understand their reasons. You will not be able to see the consequences of your actions. But there is one event you must understand. One truth. It's my job to help you see it.
Okay, so every single faction in the game arrives at this point, this next point, and they all arrive by very different means. The Templars, as they roam through London, they come across a mad prophet raving in the streets, who sends them a vision of this next area. The Illuminati, they're taken by a mad doctor and injected with a serum, which forces their mind to go back in time to this time and place. And the dragon, as you just saw, have a very natural method of arriving here, if you will. So they're kind of, it's all about the different methods that the factions use to work with their followers. And so we're not going to show much of this area because we've shown it plenty of times before. This is the Tokyo flashback where players learn about the inciting incident of the storyline of the game. But I just want to point out this black stuff that you see around here is called the filth. And we'll be talking about the filth quite a bit during this presentation, because the filth is a very important part of the storyline and it recurs quite often in the game. So we're going to now jump ahead in the game to a point where you've played for many hours. Martin's going to explain a little more about the combat mechanics in the game as we jump into Egypt, which is one of the further on playfields.
So as the player is playing the game, he's getting experience points from many different sources. Killing monsters, doing tasks for your secret society, doing missions, doing crafting, and also PvP. And as you're getting XP, this bar at the bottom will fill up. As you can see, it's divided up in 3 segments. And when the player fills up the first 1/3 of this bar, he will be getting an ability point. It looks like that. When the player fills out the whole bar, he'll be getting a skill point, which looks like that. And the player can spend these points in the ability wheel. This is the ability wheel. In here we have over 500 unique abilities, and the players can own all of them with a single character. Lots of cool abilities spread out over 9 different weapon types. Shotguns, pistols, assault rifles, blades, hammers, fist weapons, blood magic, chaos magic, and elementalism. And there are 2 main categories of abilities. We have the active abilities, which you see down here. They are the ones that you actively press to make something happen in the game, like a sword attack or a sniper shot. But equally important are the passive ones. They're the ones that constantly affecting your character, and they can really alter the way that the active abilities work. Now, as you see, the player has to make a selection. You can't run around with 500 abilities, so you pick out 7 actives and 7 passives. Each of these little squares here are referred to as cells. And inside a cell, the player will find 7 abilities. And the player has to buy these sequentially, starting from the kind of more basic ones at top and going all the way down to the bottom one, which is an elite ability. The elite abilities are super awesome and special, and the player can only equip 1 elite active and 1 elite passive. Now, there are tons of different ways you can find synergy between these abilities. The player can wield 2 weapons at the same time. So a lot of the player's skills comes in the form of finding weapons that work well together, but also abilities that work well together. So with that, we're going to close this and take a look at the basic combat in the game. We're following now a character, and she's wielding shotgun and assault rifle. Each of the weapons in the secret world has a unique resource affiliated with it. And the players can consume these resources for a special effect. You first build the resources either on the target or on yourself, and then you use some special abilities to consume those resources for a cool effect. May it be extra damage or extra healing or crowd control, and lots of cool things. And every different weapon brings something unique to the table or something unique to the fight. You can play as a damage dealer with every weapon type, but they also have sort of like a secondary role. For instance, the assault rifle has leech attack, meaning it deals damage, and a percentage of the damage is returned to either the caster or her friendly target as healing. She's also wielding a shotgun. A shotgun is great for fighting multiple enemies at the same time. For many of the abilities, you don't require a target. You just damage everything in front of you, kind of like a real shotgun. She's also being joined here by another character wielding an assault rifle and blood magic. And blood magic is really good for applying damage over time, dots, or protecting the players in absorb barriers. Another part to note is that you can move and fight at the same time. You don't have to stand still to trigger these abilities. And moving around is a really important part of the combat in the secret world. There are lots of bad things that you can avoid. If you just read the animations and read your surroundings, you can avoid a lot of bad things. So these 2 here are now approaching this temple. And there is a big boss here. And this is a great time to showcase another really important and cool feature of the secret world. We don't have any classes. You're never locked down to a class or a play style, and you can adapt on the fly. So this character right now wants to take on more like a tanking role, where you can absorb lots of damage and hold aggro from the monster. So we can open the gear manager. In the gear manager, we've already made a build, a selection of abilities and gear that's focusing on tanking, absorbing damage and holding aggro. We can look at it here, seeing the different gear, seeing the weapons, and seeing all the abilities. And with a click of a button, we can change from going from a ranged damage dealer to a melee tank-like character. And this is a really, really important part of the secret world. Not being locked down, adapting to your surroundings, changing on the fly like this. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Joel, talk a little bit more about some other features in the game.
As I mentioned before, the filth is a very important part of the game, and the players at this point have been playing the game for many hours, and they've been investigating Solomon Island, and they've come to this area known as the Blue Mountain. And they've stumbled across this abandoned CDC camp. So that here they want to investigate a little more about what the filth were doing, what the filth is about, which is what the CDC were here doing. And there's one survivor, her name is Mariana Chen. And we're going to talk to her now and hear what she has to say about the filth.
Hey, halt! No closer. I'm getting some weird readings. You might be infected. Everyone here might be infected. I'm with the CDC. I represent the government, so you have to listen to me. This is a quarantined area, and I have authority here. That's why I'm wearing the suit. That's what the suit means. It means the fecal matter has hit the fan, and we're staring Phase 7 dead in the eye. Frankly, if it didn't violate protocol, I could really use a hug. I feel very vulnerable, especially after the others were exposed. Terminally. They expired. Died. They died. Horribly. Cursing, screaming, gasping, vomiting, clawing their own eyes out. It was icky. And then, when it's finally over and they're all dead, you think, hey, that sucked, but it's done. They're gone. We can deal with that. But oh no. Rising from the dead, shambling ghouls, glowing eyes, tentacles, black slime. Not even your standard government-grade Category Z reanimated corpses. This is brand new terrifying. Run for the hills terrifying. Despite all that training, you just want to skedaddle. It started down in that bog, just before the fog came. We'd been shipped in to support the Irachi group, not the other way around. I thought with the Democrat in office, we were past these kinds of dodgy arrangements. But I guess absolute power corrupts regardless. And absolutely. Just like this Category A agent, the filth. It corrupts absolutely. Body and soul. Yeah, the filth. That's what they call it, for real. How the hell do you work with a name like that, the filth? You're just asking for it. So if I were you, I'd keep my distance. Safety first.
Alright, so every piece of storytelling in our game is considered a piece of the jigsaw puzzle. We consider our game to be like a jigsaw puzzle, and every little piece that you pick up, whether it's through dialogue, whether it's through some of the other systems in the game, will tell you more of the story and give you a better idea of the overall picture. Now, you'll notice that mission giver actually didn't tell us to do anything. She actually warned us not to do anything and said stay away. In our game, it's up to the player to take a bit of initiative and sort of further the agenda of their faction rather than the agenda of the people in the world who are either asking for help or telling them not to help or not to even be a part of things. So what we're going to do now is hack the CDC laptop here. Show you a couple of support systems we have in the game. So we have this computer hacking program called Ghost, which players get at the start of the game. They're able to hack into most computers that they find in the game using Ghost. And that gives them access to data that's often encrypted and kept on sensitive computers throughout the game. So we're going to jump into the field team section now, which gets a listing of all the people who were sent out with the CDC group as a part of the field team for this experiment. And what's interesting here is that Ghost has downloaded HTML version of the listing from the CDC website as well. So now the player can go into their mission journal and click the show image button, and they'll be able to bring up the website and have a view of what the program has downloaded for them. So it just helps to fill in a bit more information about the world, and a lot of it comes in useful during these missions. So we're going to head down into the bog now and have a look at this area where the filth all started. And while we're down there, we'll be keeping an eye out for the other CDC team members, the ones that died and came back, as she mentioned. And we'll be able to see the effects of the filth on the area down here. So you can see, for example, these used to be humans, but now they've become filthified, as we say. And so they are sort of violent. They'll attack anything they see. You know, tentacles, but they're still wearing their clothes, which is nice. And you can see the water here on the left and right. That's also filthified water. if the player walks into that water, they'll start getting filth building on their character, and it's really dangerous. You start taking a lot of damage. And just to make it really nice, we've put these characters in that pull you into the water. And then when you're in the water, you're snared and you start taking a lot of damage. So it's really important for the player not to let the filth stack too high on their character, or they'll eventually die. So it's a very hazardous area. It's a very interesting mechanic to sort of keep people on their toes while playing through this part of the game. But we've just received, I don't know if you saw the icon that flashed up, but we just received our first achievement in the game. So we have an achievement system in the Secret World, and our achievement system is sort of tied to, yes, the activities you play in the game, but also the jigsaw puzzle that is the world. So if you're paying attention to certain things, you'll understand how to do certain achievements. If you pay attention to the dialogue, if you pay attention to the things that you pick up around the world, you'll get clues as to what achievements we have. Now, our achievement system is divided into many, many different sections. At the moment, we have over 500 achievements in the game. But exploration, missions, PvP, regional, dungeons, faction, lore, crafting, and global achievements. So we have a lot of stuff for people to do. And all of these achievements are tied to sort of how the player plays. So it's you'll get achievements for doing some things that are really easy, and you'll have to find the really hard ones. All right, so we're going to move forwards now. And over there on the right, we see one of the GDC members who went missing. And this is Mavis Anderson, and she's been filthified and still wearing her suit. She's a little bit crazy, so we'll have to take her down. Now, when these filth guys die, they actually explode after a few seconds, so you have to move away from the corpses as well. It creates a hazard in the area. And there's a shade stalker off there to the right. This is when creatures have gone well beyond the tolerable filth level. So we're going to have a look at this filth pustule on the ground here. And this gives us what we call a lore piece. Now, lore in the Secret World is kind of a very interesting mechanic, because it's one of the ways in which we fill in the cracks in the jigsaw puzzle. It's the way in which we tell the story to people. Now, we don't sort of go for this codex style that a lot of MMOs do, where it's an encyclopedic entry, where you're reading about like a race or something and it's very encyclopedia style. All of our lore is story-based, so it's a narrative being told to you by a mysterious narrator. So it's really interesting to read. It makes a lot of sense, and we sort of expect players to be really interested in finding out the rest of the story. And it's told like a story, so it sort of fits in with the overall theme of the jigsaw puzzle in the game. So that's filth. That's filth, that's lore, and that's achievements. And now we're going to jump back to Transylvania and show that for the very first time, and talk about other supporting systems we have. Transylvania in our game is a huge area. It's a huge region of the game, and it's kind of it blends the elements of the fantastical that you would expect from Transylvania, but we blend it with this very Soviet era buildings, communist regime sort of feeling. So we're going to start here in this area where the player is in this burned out old communist block area, which has been recently attacked by the vampire crusades, who are cruising through Transylvania on their way into the rest of Europe. And this is all sort of a cover-up in the larger story. This is all sort of taking place because of events and people manipulating things. So the vampires we'll encounter in this area are kind of your stock standard vampires who decided to join the crusade. And they've taken the expedient of covering themselves up during the daytime by wearing clothes and covering themselves properly. So yep, the player is here and exploring this area and taking down the vampires as they go.
The task we've given now is to actually zip line over to the building next to this building. But yes, I want to talk about crafting. Given the nature of our ability system, where the player can potentially have thousands and thousands of different ability combinations, it's really important to have the items or the gear to really complement the abilities. I mean, if you're playing as a healer, you want healing stats on your gear, and if your build revolves around critical striking, you want gear that gives you critical strike chance. So we made a crafting system to really work as a support tool for the player as they're playing through the game. The crafting system is called transcribing, and it's basically breaking down items, learning from it, and putting them back together in the shape or form with the stats that you want. So the player we're following right now is playing with a hammer build, and it revolves around critical strikes and penetrating strikes. So he wants penetrate rating and critical rating on his items, which he doesn't currently have. We're now looting a hammer. So we're going to follow the process of making this hammer a better one and with the stats that we want on it. So the first thing we're going to do is break down that hammer. Just have to drag it into the box and then disassemble it. As you can see, we're getting materials, and the materials are laid out in the shape of a hammer. Now the shape in this grid actually defines the item type that you're creating. If you're creating a hammer, you really have to put them in a hammer shape. If you're creating a pistol, you have to put them in the pistol shape, and the player has to learn these different shapes. We're also getting sacred metal here, but we want to upgrade our hammer. We want to make it better. So we're going to refine that metal. We're putting in a stack, we're going to assemble it, and we're getting pure metal. And pure metal is a better, higher quality metal. Now we want to put, we've looted some other pure metal previously. So now we're going to put all the pure metal back together in the shape of a hammer. And we're going to add a weapon assembly kit, which increases the quality level of this hammer. And as we hit assemble, we're getting a rare hammer. The weapon power has increased, but we still don't have the critical rating and the penetration rating that we wanted. The way our items work is that they consist of a prefix, a core, and a suffix. And the player can create these items. So what we're going to do now is to create a prefix. The material type is the factor that decides what kind of stats that goes on this. So now we're adding the crit material, and we're adding the penetration material. We're putting it in the shape of a prefix. We're adding the tool, and then we assemble it into a glyph of ferocity. And this glyph of ferocity is the prefix item. Now this prefix item we can combine with any other item that doesn't have a prefix already. So when we drop in our hammer and our prefix, and we hit combine, we get the fierce hammer. And as you can see, it has the critical rating and it has the penetration rating. So we can now equip the new hammer that we got and fight the monster on top here. We really feel that the crafting will be an important part of the economy in our game. It's really important to have in an MMO a healthy economy, and players can craft these items separately. They can sell parts of an item, or they can sell the full item. And we really think that this will be a very important part of the social interaction of the secret world. Now that we killed him, we are going to jump into one of our dungeons.
I'm Steven. I'm a dungeon designer for the Secret World, and I'm here to show you some about one of our 5-man dungeons called the Darkness War. Now, in the past, we've talked a little bit about how you'll actually get to do some time traveling in the Secret World, but we've never quite come out with exactly how that happens. Well, we're ready to talk about it now. This is the Darkness War, which is actually a trance-induced vision of the past. The player speaks with one of the Wabanaki leaders in New England, whose name is Old Joseph, and he induces a trance in the player that sends them back into a period of time in New England's history. And they get to see what's been going on in the history of this location. I could tell you all about it, but I feel like it's probably best to just let Old Joseph do the talking.
The Norsemen came then upon our shores in longboats, and they brought with them a powerful sword. Together, the Wabanaki and the Vikings were to build a shield around this island that would keep it safe from our enemies, from those who wish to dig into the mountain and unleash the serpent.
So the background of this dungeon is that the Mayans are invading because there's a powerful source that they want to reach and control. But the Wabanaki, who are native to this land, and the Vikings, who are invaders of a sort, are banding together to try and prevent the Mayans from reaching their goal. So currently we're looking here at the very beginning of the dungeon, but I'm going to skip ahead to the very end, and we're going to show you the final fight in this entire dungeon. So I can get up to a little vantage point here. Down below, we see a large group of Mayans that are gathered around this extra-dimensional rift, preparing to perform some sort of ritual. We certainly don't want them to be completing that, so we're just going to run right in and make sure to interrupt it as quickly as we can. You'll notice as we kill these Mayans that their spirits are flying out of their bodies and down into this pit. This is a mechanic that we've seen previously in the dungeon in some of our earlier fights, where earlier we had a large, powerful creature that got more powerful with every soul that it absorbed. And this is just a little bit of foreshadowing of what might happen once these Mayans are all dead. And so, of course, because these Mayans want to complete their ritual, they're not all going to come running at us at once. But as it becomes clear that we're just not giving up, more and more of them turn around, escalating this section of the fight. So good job, guys. We won. Game over. Oh, no, not quite yet. So out from the dimensional rift comes this massive beast. He's called Yab-Sul, the Hound of the Nameless Days. During this part of the fight, we really want our players to feel, as dungeon designers, we've tried to craft an experience for the players. And at this particular point in the fight, we want them to feel afraid. We want this creature to feel really powerful. And so it has a number of mechanics that help get that feeling across. One is this massive filth spray that leaves this dangerous area on the ground that you don't want to stand in. Another is he'll rear up on his hind legs and slam down, creating a shockwave that distorts everybody's vision. And then he runs off and attacks a different target. So that's a very dangerous attack. He also pulls players towards him, and then he summons powerful magics to explode right around him. And we definitely don't want to be near him when he does that. This is a challenging portion of the fight where players just have to slog through his high hit points, dodging these attacks. And there he goes. He's decided he's not making much headway with us yet. And so he runs to the edge of the pit. He begins casting a powerful spell and summoning reinforcements. And then he takes off, leaving us to deal with the aftermath. Now before, we only had to deal with 3 or 4 Mayans at a time. Now we have very large groups of Mayans resurrecting all at once. This is a much greater challenge for our team. This is one of the ways we're trying to really build escalation into all of our dungeon fights. We never want the players to say, okay, I know what this fight is about, I'm just going to do exactly what I've been doing for the next 5 minutes. We really want there to be a build all the way through the entire fight. Aha. Fortunately, we have our own wild card. This is the Viking leader. His name is the Varangian, and he's wielding the powerful sword which old Joseph spoke of earlier, which is Excalibur. And he is summoning powerful magics to help us out. At this point, our damage is increased 3 times, and our damage resistance is doubled, so we're taking half damage. All of a sudden, these massive pulls of Mayans that were giving us some serious challenge earlier are just falling like flies. gives me, our healer, a little bit of a chance to catch up. Of course, all good things must come to an end. And so, the Hound of the Nameless Days returns, and with him, a malevolent force from beyond this dimensional rift begins focusing down on the Varangian, and his health is decreasing over this last portion of the fight. And if he dies, then we will lose the powerful buff that Excalibur is giving us. So we really need to finish this fight as quickly as possible. And now, victorious, players will be able to speak with the Varangian once they've beaten this fight, and they'll be able to learn a little bit more about what's been going on and his relationship here. But we're not going to show that quite yet. Instead, we're just going to come over and look at this. This is actually a scene that we have seen before in the game and helps tie everything together. And that is the Darkness War.